She thought the whispers were in her head. But on their first Halloween in the old Savannah house, the baby monitor came alive. No baby, no one upstairs. Yet through the static, a soft voice called her name. Amara. Her husband laughed it off, said it was old wiring, bad signal. But when Amara followed the sound to the attic, she found something impossible. A broken crib, a century-old diary, and a photo of a little black girl, wearing Amara's face. Now the whispers grow louder every night. The house remembers her name. And it's waiting for her to remember why. The rain followed them all the way from Atlanta, a steady rhythm against the windshield as the moving truck rumbled down the tree-lined road toward Savannah. Spanish moss hung like ghosts above the pavement, brushing the top of the car. Amara pressed her forehead to the window, watching the green blur of oaks and gravestones. She hadn't been home to Georgia since her mother's funeral. Coming back felt like reopening a wound. But when Jordan found the listing for the old Victorian on Willow Bend, white columns, wraparound porch, big backyard, she'd convinced herself it was a sign. A fresh start. They were both teachers, married 4 years. The miscarriage last winter had changed something between them. Jordan buried himself in lesson plans. Amara stopped painting. Every room in their small Atlanta apartment had begun to feel too quiet, too still. When she saw the house online, turn-of-the-century charm, recently restored, she imagined laughter again, sunlight, a nursery. Now, as they pulled into the gravel drive, her chest tightened. The house looked exactly like the photos, only older. Its pale blue paint had faded to gray, and the porch swing creaked in the wind like it had been waiting. Jordan jumped out first. "You have to admit," he said, smiling through the drizzle, "she's got personality." Amara smiled back, though uneasily. The air smelled of wet cedar and something faintly metallic. She reached for the key their realtor had left under the pot of withered mums. The door groaned open. Inside, the house was cooler than she expected. Dust motes drifted through the sunlight slanting from high windows. The hallway stretched deep, old wood, floral wallpaper curling at the seams. Somewhere water dripped steadily like a heartbeat. Jordan walked ahead, flicking on lights that hummed to life. "They restored most of the wiring," he said, "but the realtor warned it still acts up during storms." Amara nodded, running her fingers along the banister. Beneath the paint, the carved wood felt warm, almost pulsing. Upstairs, she found a small bedroom overlooking the garden. The previous owners had left a rocking chair by the window and a faded quilt folded neatly on the bed. She caught her reflection in the mirror above the dresser, pale, uncertain, and whispered, "This could be the nursery." The wind rattled the window pane in reply. That evening, after the movers left, they unpacked boxes in the kitchen. Jordan hummed along to the radio while Amara stacked dishes. The power flickered twice, then steadied. "You sure you're okay with this place?" he asked. "If it's too much, it's perfect," she said quickly. "It just feels old. Like it remembers things," he laughed. "That's what gives it charm." Later, after dinner, Amara wandered upstairs again. The house had a different voice at night. Floorboards creaking, pipes sighing, faint whispers of wind through the vents. She carried a cup of tea to the spare room and sat in the rocker. Moonlight spilled across the floor, touching the old crib they'd brought from storage but hadn't yet assembled. The silence pressed around her until she could hear her own pulse. Then softly through the quiet came a crackle, a static hum from her phone on the dresser. She frowned. The baby monitor app she'd used months ago had somehow opened on its own. Through the speaker, faint and far away, came a single breath, then a voice no louder than a whisper. "Amara." She froze, eyes darting toward the door. The hallway beyond was empty. The sound faded to silence. "Jordan?" she called. No answer. Downstairs, she found him half asleep on the couch, the TV still glowing. He blinked awake as she entered. "Hey, everything good?" She hesitated. "Did you say my name just now?" He shook his head. "No, why?" She told him about the app, the voice. He smiled gently. "Probably interference. Old house, bad Wi-Fi, weird signals. Happens all the time." Amara wanted to believe him. She even laughed, a small, shaky sound. But when she went back upstairs, she couldn't bring herself to delete the app. She just set the phone face down and tried not to listen. That night she dreamed of water. of standing ankle-deep in a flooded hallway while a child's voice whispered somewhere in the dark. When she woke, her pillow was damp, not with tears, but with rainwater leaking through a ceiling crack she hadn't noticed before. The next morning, as Jordan left for the grocery store, she decided to explore the attic. The realtor had said it was sealed off for safety, but curiosity tugged at her. She found the narrow staircase behind the linen closet door, the kind of passage old houses kept for secrets. Dust swirled in the beam of her flashlight. Boxes, trunks, broken furniture. In the corner, something small. A crib, its paint peeling, a thin blanket still inside. She stepped closer. The blanket was embroidered with a single name, Amara. Her breath caught. She stumbled backward, bumping a box that spilled open, revealing a stack of sepia photographs. One showed a black family standing on the porch of this very house, a woman in a lace dress, a man in suspenders, and between them a little girl, maybe 5 years old. With Amara's same wide eyes and dimpled smile, lightning flashed outside. For an instant, the shadows on the wall moved, not with the wind, but like someone else had turned to look at her. Amara whispered to the emptiness, "Who are you?" The floor creaked behind her, though she stood alone. By noon the sky had turned clear, but the house still carried the smell of rain. Amara sat at the kitchen table staring at the old photograph. She had wiped off the dust, trying to make out the faint handwriting on the back. The hearts, 1912. Our little Amara. Her fingers tightened around the edge of the photo. The same name, the same face. It didn't make sense. Jordan came in with grocery bags, humming. "You look like you saw a ghost," he joked. She hesitated, then handed him the photo. "I found this in the attic." "Look at her," he squinted. "She kind of looks like you, yeah, so what?" "She has my name," Amara said quietly. "And this house was theirs." Jordan set the picture down gently. "Coincidence. People reused names all the time back then." "Maybe," she murmured, unconvinced. He kissed the top of her head. "Don't go haunting yourself before Halloween, babe. We've got boxes to unpack." But that night, when the wind rose and the house groaned again, Amara couldn't stop thinking about that child's face, her own reflection from another century staring back through time. 2 days later, Amara drove into town. Savannah was alive with its usual Halloween charm. Pumpkins on every porch, Spanish moss glowing gold in the afternoon sun. But she wasn't here for decorations. At the local records office, an elderly clerk led her to a dusty binder marked Willow Bend, Historical Registry. She flipped through until her heart stopped. There it was, the Hart family, 1909-1913. The notes were brief but chilling. Tragic fire took the life of young Amara Hart, age 6. Cause of fire undetermined. House later restored by town council. Amara's hand trembled on the page. Fire. The dream she'd had. The flooded hall. The whispering child. She closed the book quickly and thanked the clerk. Driving home, she felt the weight of something unseen riding with her. That night, Jordan noticed her silence. "You okay?" he asked, settling beside her on the couch. Amara nodded. "Just tired." But as the wind howled outside, she heard it again, faint and soft, like a hum through the walls. This time it wasn't just her name. "You found me." She sat up sharply. "Jordan, did you hear that?" He paused the TV. "Hear what?" The voice. It said, "Amara, stop. You've barely slept. This house is old. Pipes, wind, static. It said you found me." She snapped, trembling. Jordan rubbed his temples. "I think this place is getting in your head. Maybe take a break from unpacking tomorrow. Go paint something, please." He turned back to the TV. She stared at him, not angry, but scared by how easy it was for him to dismiss what she'd heard. When she went to bed later, the air in their room was freezing. Her phone screen lit up again, the baby monitor app open. The audio bar flickered with static, then silence. She hesitated, then whispered, "What do you want from me?" No answer. Then a soft child's voice said, "The fire." Amara woke the next morning with ashes on her fingertips. She swore she'd washed her hands before sleeping. She told herself it was imagination. But when she checked the attic again, a thin layer of soot had appeared around the crib. The blanket was gone. Heart pounding, she turned to leave, and froze. In the dust by the door, tiny footprints led to the stairs. She didn't tell Jordan. He'd only tell her to rest again. Instead, she went to the local library, finding the historical archives. The librarian, a soft-spoken woman named Mrs. Kinney, helped her dig through microfilm. After a few searches, Amara found the article. Tragic blaze at Willow Bend, 6-year-old girl perishes. Mother missing. The accompanying photo showed the same family she'd seen before. The caption read, "Child believed to have been trapped in attic. Cause unknown." The attic. Mrs. Kinney adjusted her glasses. "You said you bought that house?" "Yes," Amara whispered. "Well, folks around here always said it was unlucky. Some even claimed the little girl never left." Amara's skin prickled. "You mean she haunts it?" The librarian smiled sadly. "Savannah has its ghosts, dear. Some stay for sorrow, others for love. Maybe she's just waiting for someone to listen." That night, Amara sat in the attic again, a candle beside her. The air shimmered faintly, like heat rising off the floorboards. "I know your name," she whispered. "I know what happened." The candle flickered. The air grew colder. "It wasn't the fire," the voice said softly right beside her ear. Amara's breath caught. "Then what?" He locked the door. A wave of sorrow, not hers, filled her chest. Tears stung her eyes. In her mind flashed a brief image, a frightened child pounding on a locked door, smoke curling under it, a man's angry voice shouting below. Amara gasped, clutching her head. The vision vanished as suddenly as it came. When Jordan found her later, she was sitting in the dark. Candle burnt to nothing. "What are you doing up here?" he asked. "I think she's trying to tell me the truth," Amara whispered. Jordan frowned. "Who?" "The girl." "The other Amara," he sighed heavily. "You're scaring me." She looked up at him, tears streaking her face. "Something terrible happened in this house. I can feel it. Downstairs, the power flickered again. Somewhere deep within the walls, a faint whisper carried through the vents. Find my mother." Amara shivered. She didn't notice the photograph she'd left on the table, curling at the edges, as if touched by heat. Outside, the wind rose, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke. The next morning dawned heavy and gray, the kind of light that made everything in the house look faded. Jordan had already left for work, leaving Amara alone with her thoughts and the faint scent of his coffee. She walked through the silent rooms, every step echoing a little too loud. Something felt different. The air was heavier, not cold this time, but charged, as if the house itself were breathing beneath her feet. She stopped at the base of the attic stairs, staring up. She could feel it. That pull again, faint but undeniable. Against her better judgment, she climbed. When she reached the top, the air shifted. The old crib still sat in the corner, but now something new rested inside, the burnt remains of a wooden doll. Amara's heart pounded. She hadn't seen that before. The doll's head was cracked, its dress blackened with soot. She reached for it slowly, her fingers trembling, and as soon as she touched it, the house groaned. A low, guttural sound rolled through the beams like a warning, and then she heard a soft voice behind her. "You shouldn't have touched it." She spun around. No one was there. Her breath came shallow, her heart hammering against her ribs. She set the doll down quickly and backed away, but her foot hit something. A metal latch. It was half buried under a floorboard. Amara crouched down and tugged at it, prying the plank loose. Beneath it was a small box, rusted with age. Inside, a folded letter, browned with time. She unfolded it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, desperate. "To whoever finds this, it wasn't an accident. He locked us in. The fire was no curse. It was punishment." Amara's hands shook as she read. At the bottom, a name, Eleanor Hart, the mother. Her throat tightened. "She's talking to me," Amara whispered. "She wants me to tell the truth." The wind outside howled, slamming one of the shutters open with a bang. For a moment, she thought she saw movement, a small shadow darting down the hallway. That evening, when Jordan came home, she tried to explain. She told him about the doll, the letter, the voices. He listened for a while, pacing the kitchen, Finally, he sighed and said, "Babe, I think you're spiraling. Maybe this move was too soon after your mom's passing." Amara flinched. "This isn't about my mom, isn't it?" he said softly. "You've been talking to walls, chasing ghosts. I think your grief's finding places to hide." Anger rose in her chest. "You think I want this? You think I'd make this up? I think you need rest. Please, Amara, just..." "Stop going in that attic." She turned away, fighting tears. "I can't. She needs me." "Who needs you?" "The little girl. Me." Jordan stared at her for a long time, then shook his head and walked away. When he left for work the next morning, he locked the attic door behind him. Amara spent the day pacing, her thoughts a storm. By evening, the power flickered again. Rain began hammering the roof. She lit candles and tried to distract herself with painting, something she hadn't done in months. Her brush moved without thought, guided by instinct. When she finally stepped back, her breath caught. She had painted the house, not as it was now, but as it must have been a century ago. The porch, the lanterns, the rose vines, all in vivid detail she couldn't possibly know. And in one of the upstairs windows, a small girl's face stared out. That night, lightning flashed through the curtains. The baby monitor on her nightstand crackled to life again. "You can't leave me here." Amara sat up in bed, shaking. "What do you want?" she whispered. "He's coming back." "Who?" "Father." Her phone screen glitched, distorting the image until, for a split second, she saw a figure, a man in old-fashioned clothes standing behind her reflection. She screamed, dropping the phone. The lights went out. When Jordan returned that morning, he found her asleep on the couch, surrounded by half-burned candles. Her phone lay on the floor, screen cracked. "Amara, this has to stop," he said, shaking her awake. "You're scaring me." She blinked, disoriented. "Jordan, he's real. The father. He killed them." He rubbed his eyes. "Listen to yourself." "I found a letter," she said, pulling it from her pocket. Her name was Eleanor Hart. She wrote this before she died. She said, but when she unfolded the paper, it was blank. Jordan sighed. "You need help, babe." "Real help." Amara stared at the page, disbelief flooding her chest. No, it was here. "I swear it was." He stood exasperated. "I'm calling Dr. Hayes. You're talking to someone tomorrow." "Jordan." "Don't." He walked out the front door, slamming it behind him. As silence settled again, Amara looked at the blank page, and slowly, words began to reappear, written in faint gray ink. One line at a time. "Find the locket." Under the hearth, heart pounding, she ran to the living room fireplace. The coals were cold, the stones gray with ash. She reached under the hearthstone and felt something metallic, a small gold locket. She pried it open with trembling hands. Inside were two photos, one of the little girl and one of a woman who looked hauntingly like Amara's late mother. Her vision blurred. "No, that can't be." "It's you," the voice whispered. Amara dropped the locket, backing away until she hit the wall. Images flashed in her mind. Fire, screams, a locked door. And beneath it all, a voice she recognized. Her own mother's lullaby, humming softly through the flames. Amara fell to her knees, clutching her head. "Stop, please stop." The house shuddered violently. Upstairs a door slammed, then silence. Rain poured all night. By morning, Jordan's car was still gone. Amara checked her phone, no messages. She tried calling, but it went straight to voicemail. Instead of panic, a cold calm washed over her. Something inside her whispered, "He's not the one you should fear." She walked through the house slowly, touching the walls, the furniture, the memories that weren't hers. Every room felt like a pulse, alive with memory. When she reached the attic again, the door, once locked, stood open. Inside, the crib was gone. In its place, a woman's silhouette stood by the window, draped in smoke. "You found it," the woman said softly. Amara froze. "Who are you?" The figure turned. It was Eleanor, or something that wore her face. "I was her mother, and you." "On my blood," Amara's voice trembled. "How?" "She lived again. Through me, through you. The fire couldn't end what he began." The wind howled through the broken boards, scattering papers across the floor. Eleanor's voice grew sharper. "He locked us in. He said he'd cleanse the curse. But we were never the cursed ones." Amara took a step forward. "Then who?" "The house," Eleanor said. "He bound his sins to it, and they've slept for 100 years." The candlelight flickered. Amara whispered, "Why show me all this?" "Because he's waking." Lightning cracked the sky. The window shattered inward, glass raining across the attic. When Amara opened her eyes again, Eleanor was gone. Only the child's laughter remained, echoing through the walls. That night, Amara slept fitfully. Her dreams burned with firelight. A man dragging a woman down the stairs, shouting scripture, smoke filling the air. She woke to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Jordan. She ran to the door and opened it. No one was there, but on the steps lay muddy footprints, large, heavy, leading into the house, and beside them, a charred wooden cross. By the time the sun rose, Amara had made a decision. She packed a small bag, grabbed her mother's old photo album, and went to the library. Mrs. Kinney met her at the door. "You look pale, child. You all right?" "I need to know about Reverend Hart," Amara said. The librarian frowned. "The father?" Amara nodded. After a moment, Mrs. Kinney sighed and led her to the restricted archives. "He was troubled. They say he believed his daughter was born of sin, that her mother practiced root work, old healing magic from her people." Amara swallowed hard. "And the fire?" Mrs. Kinney hesitated. The town called it an accident. But some said he meant to burn the magic out of her. Amara's breath caught. "The girl?" Mrs. Kinney nodded sadly. Poor child never stood a chance. That night, Amara returned to the house determined. She lit candles in every room, the flames casting trembling light on the old walls. She whispered to the air, "I'm not afraid of you." The wind rose. The lights flickered. Then a man's voice answered, low and cold. "You should be." Amara froze. The voice wasn't Jordan's. It wasn't human. From the dark hallway, a tall figure emerged, faint, translucent, dressed in a preacher's coat, burned at the sleeves. His eyes glowed faintly, his face twisted with fury. "You wear her face. You speak her name. You carry her sin." Amara backed away. "You're him. Reverend Hart. The curse must end," he thundered. "The bloodline must burn clean." The candles snuffed out. Amara screamed as the fire roared to life behind him, crawling up the walls like it had been waiting a century to return. The fire wasn't real, at least not in the way it used to be. The flames that roared through the living room didn't burn the walls. They shimmered like memories, smoke made of light and grief. Yet the heat was real enough to sting Amara's skin, to make her lungs ache for air. She stumbled backward, covering her mouth. "Stop!" she shouted. "I'm not her! I'm not your child!" But the preacher only advanced, his ghostly form towering, his voice echoing through every wall. "You cannot hide from what you are," he boomed. "You are her blood." "Her sin reborn. Sin?" Amara gasped. She was a child. The fire flared brighter, and for a moment the preacher's face flickered. Not fury this time, but something else. Guilt. Then the vision shattered. Amara fell hard to the floor, coughing. The room was cold again. The candles had burned out. She crawled toward the window, hands trembling. Outside, dawn's first light was breaking through the trees. By mid-morning, she packed a few things, clothes, her phone charger, the locket, the photo, and headed for the car. The air outside was sharp, wet from the night storm, but when she turned the key, the engine didn't start. Click, click. Silence. A chill ran down her spine. Then, from the rearview mirror, she saw it. The faint reflection of a small girl sitting in the back seat. Staring straight ahead, Amara turned, heart pounding. The seat was empty, but the scent of smoke lingered. She walked back to the house slowly, her shoes crunching on wet gravel. Every instinct told her to leave, to run, to never look back. But something inside whispered the opposite. Finish what she couldn't. Amara stepped inside again, the door creaking closed behind her. The house was silent now, but it wasn't empty. She could feel the pulse of it, alive, waiting. She pulled the locket from her pocket and opened it. The two faces stared back, the girl and the woman. "I know who you are now," Amara whispered. "And I think I know who I am too." Her mother's words came back to her, words from years ago, said in moments of half-truth. "You come from strong women, baby. Women who carried light through fire." Maybe her mother hadn't been speaking metaphorically. Amara returned to the attic, the air thick and still. She lit a single candle and set the locket beside it. "I'm not running anymore," she said aloud. "You can show me." The flame flickered, then dimmed, then exploded upward in a swirl of golden sparks. The attic blurred around her. In an instant, she wasn't in her time anymore. The walls were clean. The furniture was new. A small child sat on the floor, humming softly to her doll, the same doll Amara had found burnt to ash. Amara took a hesitant step forward. "Amara?" The little girl looked up, her eyes wide, the same amber-brown eyes. "You came back," the child said simply. I think I did," Amara whispered. "I saw the fire." "I saw your father." The child's face darkened. "He said Mama was wicked. Said I had her blood." Amara knelt beside her. "He was wrong." The girl reached out, touching Amara's hand. Her fingers were warm, solid. "It hurts when he prays." Amara's throat tightened. "He can't hurt you anymore. I'm here." But before she could say more, the attic door burst open. A man stood there, Reverend Hart, face wild with anger, Bible clutched in one hand, kerosene lamp in the other. "The fire cleanses all sin," he shouted. Amara shielded the child. "Don't you dare!" He turned his eyes on her, and in that instant realization crossed his face. "You," he breathed. "You carry her curse still. You are the daughter of her wickedness." Amara's heart raced. "I'm your redemption, not your curse." He raised the lamp, flame trembling. "Then burn again!" The child screamed. The world ignited. Amara gasped, the vision vanishing in a burst of cold air. She was back in the attic, on her knees, candle extinguished. But now she understood. The spirit wasn't haunting her. It was protecting her, guiding her to uncover the truth that time had buried. She ran downstairs, searching the house for something. Anything that could prove what happened. In the basement, she found a loose panel behind the furnace. Inside was a small metal box. Within it, old newspaper clippings, blackened Bible pages, and a confession written in shaking ink. "Forgive me, Father. My wife was no witch. My child was innocent. I have sinned beyond redemption. The fire was my doing." Amara's hands trembled as she read. "He admitted it," she whispered. "He killed them." Lightning cracked outside. The house shuddered violently, as if responding to her discovery. "Please," she said aloud. "Let them rest now. It's over." But a deep voice answered from everywhere and nowhere. "Not until he burns again." The floorboards shook beneath her feet. The walls groaned. The temperature plummeted. The ghostly preacher reappeared, but this time he wasn't alone. Behind him, dark shapes flickered, bound in smoke and light, trapped souls, whispering in anguish. Amara clutched the confession tighter. "You don't control them anymore." "You know nothing of control," he thundered. "I am the hand of judgment." "No," she cried. "You're the reason they can't move on." She tore the confession in half. The spirits wailed. The preacher screamed, his form fracturing like glass. The wind howled through the house, tearing at her hair, her clothes. The candlelight exploded outward, blinding white. When the light faded, the attic was calm again. The air smelled faintly of lilac and ash. Amara stood trembling, the torn paper still in her hand. Then, a soft hand touched her shoulder. She turned. The little girl was there, smiling faintly. "You freed us." Amara's eyes filled with tears. "Can you rest now?" The girl nodded. "He can't hurt anyone anymore." A warm, golden light surrounded her, the same that had filled the house in the vision. "Wait," Amara whispered. "Before you go, who am I really?" The girl smiled. "You're what he feared, what she prayed for. The light that couldn't die." Then she faded, the glow dispersing like dawn breaking through mist. For a long time, Amara stood in silence. Then she walked downstairs slowly. The air felt lighter, the walls brighter, as if the house had taken its first breath in 100 years. But when she reached the kitchen, she froze. Jordan was standing there. He looked pale, shaken. "Where have you been?" "I came back last night, but you weren't answering." The lights were... He stopped when he saw the soot on her face, the candle wax on her hands. "What happened?" Amara looked at him for a long time, unsure how to explain. "I found the truth," she said simply. "The house. It's not cursed. It was broken. I helped it heal." He frowned, confused but softening. "You sure you're okay?" For the first time in days, she smiled. "I think I am." She walked past him to the window, watching the sunrise spill gold across the yard. The air smelled of rain, not smoke. Later that day, Amara called the Historical Society. She told them she had something, records, a confession, evidence of what really happened in 1913. They listened in silence. The woman on the other end said quietly, "That story's been twisted for over a century. People will want to know the truth." "Yes," Amara said. "They should." She hung up and looked around the house. It no longer felt like it was holding its breath. Instead, it felt like it was humming, softly, peacefully, like gratitude. That night, Amara placed the locket back in the attic, where the crib had once stood. She whispered, "Rest now, little one." As she turned to leave, a faint giggle echoed behind her, not eerie this time, but bright and sweet. The candlelight flickered once more, forming faint letters on the wall. "Thank you," Amara smiled, tears glistening. She blew out the candle and walked downstairs. Outside, Halloween decorations fluttered in the wind, paper ghosts, glowing pumpkins, children laughing in the distance. She stood on the porch, breathing in the cool night air for the first time. She wasn't afraid of the dark because she finally understood. The real ghosts weren't the ones trapped in walls. They were the truths we refused to face, the wounds we buried deep until someone was brave enough to uncover them. Amara had done that. And in doing so, she'd freed them, and herself. The wind that night didn't just blow, it howled. Savannah's trees swayed like mourning women, and the old house groaned in sympathy. Amara sat in the living room with every light on, her knees pulled to her chest, the diary open on the coffee table. Her hands trembled as she flipped the last few pages, the ones she'd been too afraid to read until now. The handwriting had grown frantic, shaky, words pressed so hard they tore the paper. "They came again. Said our child don't belong here. Said her skin cursed the land. I told them God made her just the same, but they took her. Said the river will remember her better than we will." Amara's throat closed. She'd been having dreams of water, dark and deep, and of small brown hands reaching out. She thought they were nightmares, but now... They were memories. A thud echoed from upstairs. Marcus had left 2 days ago after their argument. He said he needed air. But Amara wasn't alone. The house had been whispering since he left, calling her name softly at first, then louder each night. She rose to her feet, the floorboards creaking under her bare soles. The air felt heavy, wet, like the walls were breathing. Amara. Her name drifted down the staircase. The sound was that same faint, childlike voice from the baby monitor. She grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and began climbing. Each step was harder than the last. At the top of the stairs, the light flickered. The air grew colder, ice cold. Her breath turned to fog. "Where are you?" she whispered. Then she saw it, the faint outline of a child standing by the attic door. Bare feet, white dress, braids glistening with moisture. The child didn't move, only looked at Amara with eyes full of recognition. "You came back," the girl whispered. Amara froze. Who are you?" The little girl tilted her head. "Don't you remember me?" Her flashlight sputtered and went out. Darkness swallowed everything. Then, the attic door swung open on its own. A rush of cold air blasted past her. She stumbled inside. The smell of river water and mildew filled her nose. The flashlight blinked back to life for just a second, enough to reveal what lay inside. On the floor, the broken crib, the same as before. But this time, the diary was open beside it. pages fluttering though there was no wind. The girl's voice echoed around the room, multiplied, layered with sorrow. They threw me in the river, said I was too dark to stay. Mama tried to save me. She called your name, Amara. She said, "Run, baby, run." Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. Her vision blurred. What are you saying? That I'm her? You're the one who got away. The attic filled with whispers, dozens, maybe hundreds, voices of women and children, all echoing her name. The floorboards rattled. The lights flickered. The walls began to drip, not with paint, but with water. Amara backed away, slipping. The room smelled like the river, wet earth and decay. In a flash of lightning from the window, she saw faces in the walls, all dark-skinned, all terrified. Their mouths moved in unison. Remember us. Her scream broke through the thunder. The house trembled as if something deep within it was being woken. The diary flew open again, pages tearing free, swirling in the air like leaves in a storm. One landed against Amara's chest. It wasn't from the diary. It was a photograph. It showed the same little black girl by the river, holding hands with a woman who looked exactly like Amara. Her knees gave out. She fell to the floor, clutching the photo to her heart. I'm not her, she whispered. I can't be her, but deep inside she knew. The nightmares, the house calling her. The mirror that showed two reflections when she stood alone. The house didn't just remember her name. It remembered what was stolen, and it wasn't going to let her leave until she faced it. The whispers grew deafening, a storm of grief and rage. Shadows coiled around her, pulling her toward the window. She struggled, gasping. Please, she begged. Tell me what to do. Then, through the chaos, one voice rose above all, the little girl's voice, calm and clear. Find me where the river bends. Set me free, lightning struck, shaking the house. The walls cracked and water began seeping through the floorboards. Amara stumbled backward, drenched, shivering, but now with a new kind of fear. Not of the ghosts, but of the truth waiting by the river. The storm outside had turned savage. Rain lashed the windows, thunder shook the trees, and lightning tore the sky into jagged pieces. Amara stumbled out of the attic, clutching the photo against her chest. Her breath came in short, broken gasps. The whispers followed her, sliding through the hallways, down the stairs, seeping through the cracks in the walls. The air hummed with energy, as though the house itself was awake now, watching her every move. She grabbed her coat, keys, and flashlight. Her mind screamed for her to stop, to wait until morning, but something deeper guided her steps. The voice in her head wasn't just calling. It was leading. Find me where the river bends, the river. The one behind the property line, the same one she'd seen in her dreams, a dark ribbon cutting through the forest. She'd avoided it for weeks because something about it made her uneasy. Now she knew why. As she pushed open the front door, the wind nearly ripped it off its hinges. She ran into the storm, her flashlight flickering against sheets of rain. Mud clung to her shoes. Her hair whipped across her face, but she didn't stop. The trees thinned. The sound of rushing water grew louder. When she reached the riverbank, she froze. Lightning illuminated the water, wild, dark, and swirling, and for a second, she saw shapes beneath the surface, faces, dozens of them, rising and fading, their eyes open but unseeing. The ground pulsed beneath her feet. You came back, the little girl's voice said, not from the wind this time, but from the water itself. Amara stepped closer. Who are you, please? Tell me who you are. A figure began to form in the water, translucent, glowing faintly blue. The little girl. Her braids floated around her face, her dress flowing like mist. I was you, she said softly. And you were me. Amara's heart pounded. That's not possible. Our mother tried to save us. She ran with us into this forest when they came, the men who said no black child should live on white land. She hid you under the roots by the bend of the river. She carried me in her arms. The ghost's voice trembled. They caught her before she could reach the other side. Tears streamed down Amara's face, mixing with the rain. She fell to her knees. I survived? You did. She begged the river to protect you. It carried her words through time, and when you were born again, the house felt it. It knew your blood would return. Amara looked down at her trembling hands. Her life, the recurring nightmares, her fascination with old houses, even the way the land seemed to know her. It all made terrible, perfect sense. They buried us beneath the water, the girl whispered. The others too. The house stands on their bones, Amara's voice cracked. What do you want me to do? Set us free, the river suddenly erupted. Water surged upward like a wall, crashing into the bank. The flashlight flew from her hand. She screamed as a cold current wrapped around her waist, pulling her toward the water. No, she shouted, clawing at the mud. Not again. The ghost appeared before her, arms outstretched. Don't fight it. It won't take you. It's showing you. Then everything stopped. The rain, the thunder, even the sound of her heartbeat. Amara was underwater, but she wasn't drowning. The world around her shimmered, a vision forming beneath the current. She saw a woman, her face identical to Amara's, clutching 2 children, running through the forest as men with torches chased her. She reached the riverbank, screaming prayers into the night. The men caught her, tore the children from her arms. One of the children, the one with braids, fell into the water. The woman dove after her, but the current took them both. The second child, the one hidden under the roots, survived, and that child's name was Amara. The vision dissolved into ripples. The ghost floated closer, placing a cold, gentle hand on Amara's chest. You were the promise she made, that we'd be remembered. The current calmed. The rain eased into a drizzle. Amara opened her eyes. She was kneeling on the riverbank again, soaked and trembling. In her hand was the photo, but now it wasn't faded. The little girl and the woman both looked alive, smiling. The water glowed faintly, like moonlight resting on peace. A single voice whispered, "Thank you." Then the river went still. Amara stumbled back to the house at dawn, exhausted but lighter than she'd ever felt. The walls no longer groaned. The air no longer whispered. The house was quiet, not dead but free. She went to the attic one last time. The broken crib was gone. The diary was closed, clean and dry. On its cover, carved faintly into the wood, were 3 words, "We remember you." Amara smiled through her tears. The sun rose behind her, painting the room gold. She whispered, "And I remember you too." The morning light touched everything gently. The trees, the porch, even the cracked shutters of the house that had once groaned under its own sorrow. For the first time since Amara and Marcus bought it, the air inside the house didn't feel heavy. It was lighter still, peaceful. Amara stood by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the river in the distance shimmer under the rising sun. She'd been awake all night, but not afraid. The silence felt sacred now, like the house itself was taking a long, grateful breath. Marcus arrived just after sunrise. His car tires crunched over the gravel drive, the door opening with the sound of a man who wasn't sure if he'd be welcomed back. "Amara?" he called out. She turned. Her eyes were swollen from crying, but calm, deeply calm, like the storm inside her had finally broken and washed clean. He stepped closer, guilt shadowing his face. "I shouldn't have left. I didn't understand what was happening. I thought you were losing it." Her lips curved in a tired smile. "I thought I was too. What happened?" he asked softly, glancing around the quiet room that used to hum with whispers. Amara took a slow breath. "I remembered them," Marcus frowned. "Who?" She turned to the window again, her gaze distant. "The people this house tried to forget." He followed her eyes, staring out at the trees and the faint line of the river beyond them. "You mean the ghosts?" Amara shook her head. "Not ghosts, family." She told him everything. The diary, the voices, the visions, the child who looked like her. As she spoke, Marcus's face shifted from disbelief to awe to quiet sorrow. When she finished, there was a long silence between them. Only the sound of wind rustling through the porch screens. Marcus reached out, placing a hand over hers. "So what happens now?" Amara looked down at their hands, then at the house around them. "We give them what they were denied. Remembrance." The old Savannah mansion didn't stay quiet for long, not because of spirits, but because of life. Amara had turned one of the downstairs rooms into a small museum, a heritage space, she called it. The walls were lined with photos and records she'd uncovered from the town's archives. She'd found old birth certificates, census listings, even the names of people who had once lived and worked the land, enslaved, forgotten, and erased. Now, their names were written in gold on black plaques that glimmered under warm light. The diary sat in a glass case at the center of the room, open to the last page, the one that said, "We remember you." Visitors began to come, neighbors first, then historians, then schools. People who had never set foot in that part of Savannah before came to listen to Amara tell the story of the house that once wept with ghosts. Marcus helped her paint the front porch, fix the steps and plant magnolias along the drive. Every weekend, Amara placed a bouquet of wildflowers by the river bend, one for every child, every mother, every story lost to the water. One evening, after everyone had gone home, she walked alone to the river. The water flowed softly now, reflecting the orange glow of the setting sun. Fireflies blinked in the trees like tiny lanterns. Amara knelt and whispered, "I did it. You're free now." A soft breeze passed over her face, warm and familiar, and she swore she heard the faintest sound of laughter. Childlike, gentle, joyful, she smiled. Not every story of pain has to end in sorrow. Some can end in remembrance, in peace. Final scene. Months later, Amara sat on the porch with Marcus, sipping tea as the cicadas sang. Her belly had grown, 6 months pregnant. She rested a hand over the life growing inside her. Marcus grinned. "Have you decided on a name yet?" She looked toward the river, the light dancing on its surface. "Yeah," she whispered. "Her name will be Nia," he smiled. "That's beautiful. What does it mean?" "Purpose." Marcus leaned back, exhaling softly. "That's perfect." Amara turned to him with a faint smile. "Every generation deserves a purpose, even the ones the world tried to erase." That night, the camera would pan slowly across the house, the newly painted walls, the photos of smiling faces. The diary closed beneath glass, and then out toward the river. The water glimmered under the moonlight. For a brief second, 2 figures appeared, a woman and a little girl, hand in hand, before dissolving into the reflection of the stars. A final whisper carried through the wind. She remembered us. The sun had long disappeared behind the moss-draped trees, leaving only the soft orange glow of lanterns around the porch. The house, once heavy with secrets, now exhaled peace with every creak of its floorboards. Amara sat outside, wrapped in a shawl, her notebook resting on her lap. Fireflies drifted lazily around the garden she'd planted, rows of wildflowers mixed with white lilies. She was writing again, but this time not to escape her pain. She was writing to preserve. Each word she wrote was a name. Each name a story, and each story a life that would never be forgotten again. The front door opened quietly. Marcus stepped out, holding 2 mugs of tea. "Still writing?" he asked softly. Amara nodded. "Always." He sat beside her, handing her a mug. "You've turned this place into something beautiful." She smiled faintly. "It was never the house that was cursed. It was our silence." They sat in peaceful quiet for a while, the kind that doesn't need to be filled with words. The sound of the river nearby hummed like a lullaby, gentle and steady. Suddenly a soft breeze drifted past, cool but comforting. Amara lifted her eyes toward the water. For just a heartbeat, she saw them, the woman and the little girl, standing together at the river bend. They weren't sad anymore. They were radiant, their hands entwined, watching her with eyes full of love. Amara's lips parted. "Mama!" Marcus looked up. "What is it?" But when he turned, the figures were gone. Only ripples remained on the water's surface, glowing under the moonlight like silver threads. Amara smiled through her tears. "She's home," she whispered. The camera panned slowly through the house, past the diary resting open on a table, the gold plaques gleaming softly in the museum room, the baby crib restored with new wood. fresh flowers inside. A soft child's voice echoes faintly through the halls. Not crying now, but singing. Then it fades into silence. The Savannah mansion was no longer a haunted house. It had become a place of gathering, remembrance, and love. Children played in the yard during community tours. Elders told stories on the porch, their laughter mixing with the hum of cicadas. Amara stood at the riverbend again, a baby girl cradled in her arms. She looked down at her daughter, whose small eyes reflected the water's glow. "Do you hear that?" Amara whispered. The baby cooed softly. "That's their love in the wind," she said. "And one day, you'll tell their stories too." She kissed her daughter's forehead, whispering, "Because we remember." The camera slowly pulls away from the mother and child, the river, and the house, until all that's left is the vast southern landscape bathed in evening light. On-screen text fades in. The past doesn't haunt us to hurt us. It haunts us to be healed. Dedicated to all forgotten voices. Soft gospel humming fades in, blending with the sound of the wind and river. The screen fades to black.